Okay.
He has a pretty detailed presentation, but I know the basic message of it.
Okay.
I think he's
Okay, so for this stuff, I have too much stuff. Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is July 1st, 2025. It's 11 o'clock. And we'd like to have a roll call.
Commissioner Mon here.
Commissioner Harvey present.
And Commissioner Stubbs here, and we have a full quorum. We would like to ask for a volunteer to give us an opening, give us a prayer. We have any volunteers?
I'll do the prayer,
Okay,
Madam
thank you.
Chairwoman.
Thank you.
All right. If you haven't heard the Navajo language, well, here it goes. Ni tra ya ashide honaloni. Ahihat dichin ku lahnani tle ku nat ani bel. Thanil ewe ku lahnani lido ba da honit ihigi alket asto ako nihil honlon hitra najenago banside keso da inils do altroje de nit ego ad energiet ego hashte da dil nil nihin sake special on ha insen nitra akoni den ba najenago sake sigi hashte da dil nil ado hihat ni salal so ku na khanda kre nan dan zagon ni chanda kre edo na khabel honlo ado ni banda is na ligil to not ani Washington den da krenigi ado da shi bit khoje ade ho wando ye ho wan ajin khan na da krenigi na khan na da kregil to na khabel honlo alsoje nakha lato da yo ido nakhayan sada keso ad ego ben hijin das ego nakhayan sada keso nihido atkha kodo nat ani nitlenegi lato enahoti igi ba banside kesto nihid na den zenigit ba jo ba tani zenko nat anigi hashte dadil ni Adoku ad San Juan County bi kana kid hat engi nakha denen nakha belhonalo dinanish date hegi ba kana alwagi alshoje do banant ago badhalo ba bakani jahdani zen nitra ado hihat nitra ku naltin do ben yetso dadil zen hen hadoltin Aku ni tranda dok aston ni trata jogo ni tsejita jogo na de kredole adon ni masana ni chedan linin ni kein rabel honlo joba denzen yet ashi lobet so da zen da hallo nakhad ba taditi dole ahia ni tra ni ye ya ashi de nakhana yado betsode zen nakhana san yikanin la ebik kola kodo bijit benache addition na inchka. In the name of Jesus Christ I pray. Amen.
Amen. Would you join us and send the pledge of allegiance? Walk up.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Commissioner, at this time, we disclose if we have any conflict of interest in the agenda.
I have no conflict of interest.
I have no conflict of interest.
And I don't have either, so this time we'll turn the time to Matt for public comments.
Okay, so public comment period. I appreciate those people that had signed up on here. Just as a reminder, for our public comment period, we allow 3 minutes apiece for the public comments. Just with that, just wanted to read a statement here of encouragement. So I want to encourage all of us to approach the public comment period with kindness and respect. Our county employees dedicate themselves to serving our community, maintaining our infrastructure, ensuring our safety, and addressing our needs, often under pressure. When we step up to speak, let's focus on sharing our ideas and concerns constructively. Kind words and solution-oriented feedback create a stronger, more collaborative community. Harsher personal attacks only hinder progress and hurt those working for us. Let us use the 3 minutes to uplift and inspire positive change, showing the best of who we are as a community. Also, during that 3 minute period, don't anticipate the commissioners to respond and engage you. It's really an opportunity for the commissioners to hear from you as the public. With that being said, first we will turn our attention to those members in our audience who have signed up or who raised their hand after that period. And then, with that being said, we do have people today online. So we'll turn our attention to those online. If you are online, there's a feature on Zoom where you can raise your hand to be acknowledged, and then we would call on you as your hands are raised. Or if you cannot find that hand raising feature within Zoom, then when we turn the attention to those online, if you can unmute yourself. In all cases, as you approach the microphone up here, please do state your name and where you reside in the county for our minutes and our records. With that being said, we'll take the first one that signed up on here. I've got Shannon Brooks for the first one.
Shannon Brooks, Monticello area. First of all, I apologize for my appearance. I just barely came out of the fields. I left the team working there. I got to go back as soon as I get done here. I direct your attention to page 47 of the packet. This is addressing item 12 in the agenda. I want to read, first of all, the job description of the county attorney. The attorney's office has the responsibility of prosecuting felonies committed in San Juan County, as well as certain misdemeanor matters in the district and justice courts and juvenile court. As part of these duties, the county attorney also supervises the Victims Advocacy Program. The county attorney's office also represents the Board of County Commissioners and all of the various county officials and departments on official county business, so like in lawsuits, that kind of thing. So on page 47, there's a letter from the county attorney. And I want to make it clear from the beginning, my comments are not directed at the county attorney. It's the county attorney's office, right? That rotates. And so it's the county attorney's office. I'm not talking about Mr. Mon. I don't really know him. I met him one time. So this letter that you're looking at, page 47, represents a flagrant overreach of authority. It represents a major violation of the separation of powers doctrine vouchsafed in the U.S. and Utah state constitutions. So as I looked at that letter, there are no current lawsuits in progress regarding land use. So this job description that's on the website doesn't apply to the letter at all. There should be no letter from the county attorney regarding land use. It provides unsolicited advice. I checked, and there's been no advice requested from the county commission or the county administrator. So this advice from the letter is unsolicited. That is not the role of the county attorney. This letter talks about and admits that the county attorney's office has been involved in initiating contracts, a contract of somewhere around $10,000. That is not the role of the county attorney. You look at the job description, there's nothing there that says administrative roles or initiating contracts. So that's a problem. If you look right below the letter, there's a sheet that shows you a whole bunch of scheduling for work meetings. It has all kinds of dates and everything on it for planning commission and for the county commission. That is not the role of the county commission or the county attorney's office to set up a schedule for work meetings, as was listed in the letter. And my last question I have, or comment I have on this before I get into the letter, is why is this being presented by the county attorney at all? This is the purview of someone who we're paying almost $100,000 a year for. This is the administrator of planning and zoning. This is land use. That's their job. And we have the county attorney.
Right there.
Okay.
I was here too late to get my name on the list.
We can add you. Yeah, we'll get you.
I'd like to relinquish my time to Shannon so we can continue, if that's okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Commissioners, you okay with that? All right, we'll give you a new 3.
So if you go to the letter, first item on the letter, this is 2025 Land Use Ordinance General Plan Update. This is from the county attorney to the commissioners. The first major title is, our present land use ordinances are flawed, out of date, unworkable, and provide no real benefit to the county. Well, there could be a pretty strong case made that that's not 100% true. And second of all, I don't think the land use ordinances are for the benefit of the county. They should be for the benefit of the citizens, not the county government. And I think there's a real difference of opinion on that, and that's one of the issues we have in this county is who are we doing this for, county government or for the citizens of the county? The next major item, number 2, on page 48 of item 12, this letter, he talks about, it says the county is unable to advise developers and land use professionals on projects, inspections, building, and other critical matters. It has lost tons of revenue because it is unable to enforce basic provisions in our current ordinances. It is not able to approve projects and requests. This is a rural county dedicated to agricultural land use. Says it in the general plan. The county government exists to protect the citizens and agricultural land use, not to generate revenue. So not only is it unsolicited, but I think the county attorney's office has a wrong perspective on what the purpose of San Juan County government is for. But really, the one that really got my goat here is number 3. The county has gone to great lengths to advise, educate, listen, and involve the general public on issues related to the proposed ordinance. The public have submitted hundreds of changes to the ordinance. To date, haven't seen a single change on the ordinance that's on the website. Now, if that has been changed, we haven't been notified of it. And the public has not had a chance the public has not had a chance to review these. We, as a citizen organization, PAC, has not had an opportunity to go out and educate the public on this. It's a real problem. This is our county. We live here. This is not the county of transitory elected officials. On number 3, it says, in short, there is nothing more to be gained by any further extension of time or by failing to adopt the proposed ordinance. I've got nearly 250 survey respondents who would beg to differ. They're asking for a bunch of time to review, to be involved in the process, and this letter suggests that we don't need any more input from the public, and it's just not true. So basically,
right there.
okay, that's good because I'm at the end. So that's the end of my comments. I hope that we'll take that into account and not go any further with this until we get the public involved and do what the county government is designed to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, the next one I have Lynn Martin. Oh,
I don't know if you can. I'm gonna,
next one. You ready?
You,
That's
you can do when he does a presentation. Anyway.
Okay,
Lynn
Lynn.
Martin and I live in the county, and what Shannon is telling you is right on. I fully support what Shannon has said. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Carol.
Carol Martin, Monticello. Kendall Laws sent the following to a county commission. Commissioners, there is a common thread in all scams and schemes. The scammer must create the appearance of an emergency. This is often in the sense of a deal that won't last long, or perhaps a warrant is out for your arrest that you need to pay over the phone immediately, or your grandchild is in a jail in Mexico and needs your help to bail out. That false sense of emergency is often the hallmark of a good scam. The letter contained in pages 47 through 51 of your packet have all the hallmarks of a good scam. In fact, it even implements highlights and bold lettering to emphasize the need to act now or miss out on something critical. As a county citizen, I implore you to take a step back and consider what is being asked of you in item 12. You are being asked to adopt a contract for services for the sum of $10,000. Upon initial inspection, several points of concern pop up for me. Number one, is this a contract that is being presented to you for your approval? Number two, if it is a contract, has it followed proper procurement policy? In other words, is the county attorney asking you to commit the same errors that he strong-armed you into with a prior contract for building inspections? Number three, where is the request for proposal? If this is in fact a project exempted from the RFP process, there are steps that are required to be taken to ensure that in fact the services are sole source or some other exception. Agenda item 12 does not include any such justification other than that Mr. Hansen previously worked on the county's general plan. That is hardly sufficient to justify not sending this out to RFP. Number four, why is the county immediately considering spending $10,000 and also considering doing it without following proper protocol? When state law allows counties to request the assistance without charge from state agencies and departments in creating their general plans, wouldn't the county be better served by first consulting the state agencies and departments who have expertise in each area of the general plan without costing the taxpayer anything? One thing I can fully support in Mr. Mon's letter under agenda item 12 is that there are people in this county that are watching what you are doing and how you are doing it. I am one of those. If you do not require the county attorney and the county planning administrator to follow basic rules of the Open Public Meetings Act and county procurement policy, there's a strong likelihood that this whole process will be ground to an immediate halt while someone reviews the legalities of this agenda item. Please just do it right the first time.
Okay, that was all that we had signed up. All right, looks like we have several others in the audience. James, I think you're okay? Okay, so on the back, go ahead and come on up. As a reminder, you've got 3 minutes to state your name and where you reside within the county.
Alrighty. Just start whenever?
Yep.
Alrighty. My name is Alvin Chung. I live in the northern part of San Juan County. I am a FAA Gold Seal. I should let you guys know I'm speaking on item 11 regarding Sky Ranch Airport. I'm a FAA Gold Seal instructor, a National Association of Flight Instructor Master Instructor. I'm also on the FAA safety team at the Salt Lake City FSDO with the FAA. I have instructed many people regarding landing in backcountry airstrips as well as air parks all over the United States. Some of them in Texas, but a lot of them here in Utah, such as Sky Ranch here. We do have Sky Park out in Bountiful, as well as Grassy Meadows in Hurricane, Utah. I just wanted to come here and let you guys know that from my experience, there's absolutely zero safety risk or issue with the Sky Ranch Airport. This airport has been around for a long time. It's been certified and placed into the FAA's certified airports list and given an FAA identifier. This issue has only been brought up since Carl, the person who lives south of the field, wanted to sell his land. This issue has never, or safety has never been an issue at this airport. And that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Dan Wheeler. I'm also a resident of San Juan County, live at the north end. I frequently fly in and out of the Sky Ranch. I've been flying since the 1970s, have extensive experience flying in the Idaho backcountry. I'm a professional pilot, and my experience with that airport as well is it's a extremely safe airport. I fly out of there regularly. Runway length is adequate, runway width is adequate. I have clear egress paths and departure paths and approach paths, plenty of places to go. So there's no hazard there in my opinion. And again, thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Hello, my name's Chris Benson. I'm a resident of San Juan County, 65 Cabrera. Pretty sure I'm up to date on my taxes. You can check though. Also here as an aviator, just speaking on behalf of Sky Ranch, I know there's a lot of different opinions, but in my mind there's nothing exceptional that makes this more dangerous than any other airstrip out there. I live in a subdivision that was developed by Jim Hurst, who is a pioneer in aviation, and the old airport was out there, and I think with larger airplanes, sure. But for the kind of general aviation community, this airport runway situation is completely adequate, and I would be very saddened. Part of the reason I was able to purchase my home in San Juan County is its location near this airstrip, and someday I'd like to be able to use it a little bit more to commute to the places I love. So I just encourage you to take our perspective into account dealing with all these issues, and consider that I think that it is a very reasonable airstrip for the reasons that others have already outlined, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Morning, guys. My name is Dallin Red. Some of you may know me. Grew up here in San Juan County. Roots run deep here. I'm just here in support of these guys today. I also am a pilot, fly a lot in this area, flown to a lot of different airstrips, and just kind of backing up what Chris said and Dan said, as well as Alvin, there's nothing really, in my opinion, of great concern with this airstrip. It's been there a long time. Yes, there are houses around it, but like Alvin mentioned, there's a air park up north, Bountiful Sky Park, and there's plenty of congestion right around the airport. Really not too big of a safety concern there. Anyways, just want to show my support for them, and I agree and back them up with what they said. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else in the audience would like to make a public comment? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Let's turn our attention to online. We've got first hand up from James. James, go ahead and unmute yourself if you're able to.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, Jim Schnaple with Gardner Plum. It's a group. We have an interest in the property near Sky Ranch Runway, and I guess we're speaking on item 11 in this case. The Sky Ranch subdivision and runway are complicated issues that need to be fully assessed. I encourage the commission to send the issue back to the Planning Commission with clear instructions for a full review to conform with the district court's ruling to fully assess the safety concerns and the legal status of the runway. The legal status of the runway is the first place to start, as it would make no sense to analyze the safety issues if the structure itself is not legal. In 2017, the runway was reconstructed and expanded and bears no resemblance to the original dirt airstrip that was established in the 1970s. Although the runway was clearly identified as a conditional use in the land use ordinance in 2017, Sky Ranch did not obtain a conditional use permit. This was a requirement to rebuild and expand the runway's use within the historical parcel, and it was absolutely a requirement to extend the runway onto a parcel where no runway ever existed. In fact, the runway was extended almost 400 feet onto new land where there was never a runway. The entire runway was likely illegally expanded in 2017. During the June 2nd commission meeting, the Sky Ranch attorney stated that the runway's use is grandfathered. However, claiming a right to use the runway is not the same as legally establishing a right to use the runway. Utah law dictates a process for Sky Ranch to prove it has historical rights that can continue. Sky Ranch also needs to prove that any historical non-conforming use can be expanded, as would happen if the property were developed with hangar homes, as proposed by Phase 2 of the Phase 2 subdivision. Property law generally encourages the elimination of non-conforming uses, not the enhancement of them. You've heard a lot about whether the runway is safe or not from groups on both sides of the issue, including about it being safe right now. What is commonly missed is that the planned development for housing on both ends of the runway, on Spielman's land and also on the Sitla land to the north, is that this is land that Sky Ranch does not own, yet is continuing to use for its safety zones. This runs counter to Utah law and property rights. I encourage the county to engage an outside engineering firm with experience in this area to fully assess whether the runway is safe and if its hazards can be contained within the Sky Ranch property as mandated by Utah law. The county did this at least twice in 2024 when considering other runways and should do the same for Sky Ranch. Although Sky Ranch has proposed adding some self-limitations, including the number of flights per day, the county should consider if the runway is safe or not. All it takes is one plane experiencing an emergency to cause a hazard to neighboring properties. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Next one I have on here with a hand raised, I've got Jimmy Anderson.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I just wanted to thank the commission for letting me appear electronically today. I'm obviously here counsel for Mr. Spielman, and so I will wait for item 11 for whatever questions or presentation that we have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that is all that I have as far as hands raised. Is there anybody else online who would like to make a public comment? If so, go ahead and unmute yourself, and then we'll just take you as you speak up. Okay, looks like I got Joy. Oh, okay.
I guess.
Joy, can you hear us?
Yeah. Can
Okay.
you hear me okay?
Yep, go ahead.
Sorry. Joel, Mexican hat. I'm just asking that item 12 on today's agenda also be deleted. See this as an attempt to protect the county from landowners asserting private property rights in the future. You know, and you all take an oath to protect and preserve our rights. I agree with what Shannon Brooks had to say and the other lady. I've watched my property taxes triple down here for no apparent reason. So maybe it's time to ask, what is your vision for my land? Because obviously people have one and you're not being very transparent. Not you necessarily, but whoever is really pushing all of these land ordinances and stuff. It's just kind of a bizarre situation going on. Some of us kind of like it how it is. And anyhow, thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks, Joy. Okay, anyone else wishing to make a comment? Okay, this is the last call. I'm not seeing anybody unmute themselves. Okay, commissioners, that is your public comment period for today.
Thank you, Mac, and thank you all the participants. Can we go next to the consent agenda?
Yes, yep, that would be it. So under, hold on, let me capture my mouse. There's a delay here. So under the consent agenda items today, let me jump ahead here. So we've got 4 items under your consent agenda. You have the approval of $7,101.01 in small purchases. You've got $3,150 for the Wheeler install machine software subscription, $2,609 for 4 delete bundles, $1,342.01 for the Century equipment assembly case for the road department. Item number 2, you have the approval of the San Juan County Health Department tobacco contract between San Juan County and the State of Utah Department of Health and Human Services for fiscal year 2021 through fiscal year 2025. This is amendment number 9. Item number 3 is the approval of the San Juan County Summer Food Service Program 2024 contract between the Utah Department of Health and Human Services and San Juan County. This is amendment number 1 to that contract. Item number 4 is a ratification of the appointment of Kurt Crowley as the San Juan County Transportation District Manager. That, Commissioners, are your 4 items on today's consent agenda for your approval.
Thank you. So the next item in the agenda is
We would need a motion and
recognition and presentation and information items.
We need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, we need a motion, sorry, okay. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to motion to approve item number 1 and item number 4. And then I'd like to discuss a little further item number 2 and item number 3 after we take a vote on approving 1 and 4.
Okay, do we have a,
I'll second the motion.
all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes and Commissioner Harden, you have the floor.
Madam Chairwoman, on item number 2, just for purposes of the public, maybe we can just clarify the amendment number 9, what that entails, and on item number 3, the amendment 1 and what that entails.
Okay, Mike, do you want to address those?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Awesome. So the amendment on the tobacco contract is to increase the amount of funding for this next fiscal year for the activities and grant deliverables that are performed, which include staff training, pilot projects, partnerships with priority populations and organizations, tobacco retail store permitting, and compliance checks with those retail stores, and providing education with those retail stores on sales that can and can't be performed based on age and so on. So this is just, that's the purpose of that contract. Again, it's mainly just to add the funding for this coming year and to change the effective date on the contract to run through 2026.
Okay. Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to motion to approve item number 2 with clarification. And I'd like to ask another question after my motion.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor say aye?
Madam Chairwoman, just a quick question. The item is motion to approve, but just further clarification, Mike, since you're the one providing some details to my questions.
Yes.
In regards to having to have, what was the word? It's to ensure compliance checks. In this contract, who is the entity that is required, or who are we requiring to do compliance check? Is it public health or another?
Yes, public health.
Public health.
We go out and perform the compliance checks.
Okay, and what's our progress rate on the compliance checks so far? Are we meeting those requirements?
Yes, we are meeting those requirements. We go out and perform those checks. We've had a few retailers that have required some additional education, and but yes, we are current on staying up to date with all of the retailers according to the expectations of the contract.
Very good. Those are my questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
So, did we done with all the motions? Okay, thank you.
We
Then-
need to vote.
Well,
We need to vote.
Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
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 And then
Passes.
moving to number 4 or number 3.
Recognition, presentation, and
No.
you
So
still
we're
have
still
more
at that
comment. Oh,
number.
you still have
Yeah.
more comment. Okay.
Yep.
Item number 3, clarifying amendment number 1.
Okay.
This amendment is to increase funding amounts that basically provide the pay for the inspections to be performed of the 3 food pantries or food banks in the area. The summer food service program is based out of those facilities. And so our environmental health director will go and perform an inspection on that program. And that's what this funding is to help cover.
Okay.
And it's 115 per inspection. So that will cover the 3 sites.
All right. That clarifies the amendments for me. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to motion to approve.
I'll
The-
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Now that we go to recognition presentations
Yes.
and information items.
So this first item here is discussion on the Utah Association of County Civil Services and County Recovery Service opportunity. Commissioner Juan had asked to have these on the agenda, so I'll turn it to you.
Okay, so these 2 items are on the agenda as they were discussed at UAC, which is our Utah Association of Counties. UAC has proposed that they create a program for civil legal services. And I know each county has obviously their county attorney. However, this deals with just civil legal services, which would provide like basic contract review, election law, procurement, particular things like that can be cumbersome for our, just our regular county attorneys that are here as they are dealing with prosecution and the whole criminal side of it. So the proposal is that each county put forth some money toward this, and then these services could only be initiated through the county attorney's office. So if they felt that they had so much on their plate they couldn't deal with it, they could pass it off to this UAC attorney. So this is one item for consideration that we need to decide if we want to participate in. They're looking at implementing this, I believe, in the fall, is what she said. So the next item is, and I haven't received a formal email on this, but this was part of the discussion, is the UAC recovery services. And so what they're talking about doing is having a service where they work, it's like a debt collection, basically, for people who do not pay their property taxes and working with them. So there is no fee associated with it unless the debt is collected. And they would work with the state income or the state tax commission. Yes, state tax commission, excuse me. And so that's something that we need to consider. It's not necessarily something that we need to vote on today with that one, because I have not received more information on that and should plan on getting more from them at the next UAC board meeting. But as far as the civil services, we can decide what we want to do on that, and as sooner than later.
And with the first one, we have been talking already about, I had Brandy from UA got hold of me and explained the program and passed the information to Mac. We had talked about that, and today during the secretary meeting, we can discuss further about how to proceed with that. And anyway, so for that, so
Kind of a background with that, the county's recovery services, NACO so the National Association of Counties used to offer this program, and they stopped doing it. San Juan County is one of the counties that participated in the NACO recovery program. And so it's good to see this pop back up under UAC, which is the Utah Association of Counties. We had used this service. You can use it obviously for the collection of property taxes for those individuals that don't pay their property tax. you can push it into a collection service, which will take and garnish personal income tax. So as you go and you file your personal income tax, if you are owing a debt in one of these recovery services, they take that income that would be generated from that taxes that would return back to the citizen. They garnish it and then push it back to the counties to satisfy that debt. We had also used this recovery services for our EMS collection as well for those individuals that weren't covered with Medicaid, Medicare, or insurance. Then we would push this to the tax commission with how much they owed the county. And so we've utilized that service before, so it's kind of good to see it come back. We didn't have a lot. It wasn't hundreds of thousands, but it was still a collection service that was free. We didn't have to pay for. And like Commissioner Mon had mentioned, it takes a portion of that collection that to administer the program. Good programs, both of them, I think.
Okay, did you?
So it's kind of a stay tuned, it sounds like. Once the programs get further developed, then we can.
Well, the civil services is developed. We just need to decide what we need to probably, that would be something we would decide in this meeting, whether it's this meeting or the next meeting, and how we want to approach that.
I think we can visit in the second meeting, and then we can put in the agenda this time.
Okay.
Yeah, good idea.
Because I don't think we can vote in this part of the agenda.
No,
So,
it was just a discussion item.
Right.
so it had to be moved to a visit action. Anyway, so this we have.
Okay, the next one is item number 6, 2025 State of Utah Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands Fire Restriction Order. Stage 1, Fire Restriction Awareness and Announcement. This is really just more informational, really, for the public that we have. The state has issued their fire restrictions on all public lands. I guess it also include the private as well as the stage 1. You also in the packet have BLM, as BLM reported to us in the work session earlier, and some of their efforts throughout the county. That he had also made reference to his restrictions that he has, which mirror the states. And so this is really more of a public awareness campaign that we are on fire restrictions. For us as the county, typically we want these fire restrictions in place sooner than the state does. They have an awesome equation that they use with humidity and ground moisture and things like that. We see our forests as watershed contributing, and so we always try to encourage those fire restrictions early on. So just be aware that we are now under that stage 1 fire restriction for the county. Item number 7 here is employee recognition and thanks to Jeremy Hogart, our Emergency Medical Services Director, for receiving the EMS Instructor of the Year by the State of Utah Bureau of Emergency Medical Services. I don't know if you've seen his picture in the paper, but I think it's super important that we recognize those employees that have gone above and beyond, especially for him. He got that EMS Instructor of the Year during one of the conferences that he had attended. We also have Rosa Vargas, our Executive Assistant, for Outstanding Leader Award for the State of Utah Homeless Services Board. So we do want to just recognize those 2 employees that received some state recognition and recognize them here kind of at a local level as well.
Mac, I want to, a couple of things under number 7, recognizing, we have so many employees, and I'm sure there's so many things we don't hear. So maybe this is one time to try to tell on each other. When you hear something good happening, let us know so we can recognize the work that's happening and the success of our employees. Second, number 6, Commissioner Harvey, I request the floor for number 6.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Don't mean to diminish the successful recognition of Jeremy and Rosa. Very awesome employees. I just want to extend my congratulations to each of them. In regards to item number 6 and the fire restriction order, I just wanted to mention for Navajo Nation, the district in the area where I'm from, Navajo Nation did also issue a fire restriction, and perhaps I could share that, and we can have all the orders that are existing in place be also inclusive of the southern part of our county. I know Navajo Nation or Navajo Mountain just had a situation where they were going through on the Bridge Canyon. I think it was on the east side of Navajo Mountain. And then there's a resource that the state talked about last night of maps that are available where you can check to see what other restrictions there are in specific places. But just highlighting Navajo Nation as well. Navajo Nation president issued a similar order for folks that are on the reservation to take caution. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, send that to us and we'll add that to our Facebook announcements and we can put it on our website. And so that'd be awesome. So item number 8 on here is just a discussion of the cost savings withdrawal from workers' comp fund insurance and transitioning to the Utah government's local trust. As soon as we did some research with Utah Local Trust, we had discovered through their organization we would be able to save just roughly a little bit over $20,000 a year from migrating off the Workers' Compensation Fund of Utah and going directly to the Utah Local Government Trust. In that, you kind of see the counties that are already members of the Utah Trust with their workman's comp that are here. What isn't included is Weber County is also transitioning and Morgan County is transitioning. Obviously, the 30% savings in workers' comp is enticing a lot of counties to switch out of workers' comp. But I think more importantly is what we get behind the scenes from the Utah Local Government Trust. Every year I've been with workers' comp programs for well over probably 10, 15 years from the state on at a county level. Whenever we would get a claim that would come in from an employee that was injured, it seems like workman's comp kind of tried to work themselves out of the claim itself and honoring the claim. And it really, for my opinion of it, is really wasn't in the best interest for the county employee or the state employee. But they just kind of had their own mantra. So if the doctor prescribed for return visits from the doctor to go back for rehabilitation, physical therapy, things like that, workers' comp tried to limit those instead of what the doctor was asking for. And so it just seems like the workers' comp wasn't really out there to champion the employees. Speaking with Utah Local Government Trust, is they don't do that with the employees. With our employees, by transitioning out of workers' comp to them, we were still able to use our local hospitals here as the first report of injury. Up north, they have WorkMed clinics that employees can report to. Here along the rural portions of Utah, we don't have those type of clinics here, and so our first report really is to our local hospitals, sometimes even to an emergency room or the clinics there. They will still honor and respect those local hospitals being our first report on there. They also do our OSHA tracking for us, whereas in the past year we've done our own OSHA tracking and reporting through the workers' comp system. And so here they do that for us, which is kind of a good blessing that will help with HR as they submit those. But I think all of that, it sounds good, but what I really like is the training that is provided by this entity. when we can get into harassment and discrimination training for all of our employees, the land use training, stop the bleed, CPR training, lockout, tagout training, hazmat training, that defensive driving training, confined space, trenching and shoring training, reasonable suspicion training. And so that's really what I like, is that ability to ramp up our training efforts, especially when it comes to our maintenance staff, or, even with our road department and, the pits that they may have as they changing oil, just that extra training that we don't offer now that we need to be offering, especially when it comes to that harassment and discrimination training. Those things come free with entering into an agreement with the Utah Local Trust. But first we have to notify USIP that we are withdrawing from workers' comp, and then beginning in January of 2026 is really when it transitions over out of workers' comp to the Utah local government trust. And so that's kind of the update. Do you have any questions of going through that? Like I said, if it saves us 30% a year, that's money that we need.
No, I also like the training part. I think with distance and lack of fundings, we cannot be sending our workers for trainings away from here. So I think that's one of the things that is appealing to me, the training. I think all of us need training. So.
Okay, if you're all okay, we'll continue to proceed with that one. Then item number 9 on the agenda is the discussion of the adjustment in compensation for San Juan County Assessor. We got Rick Meyer here to present this one, part 2.
Yeah, a little more pointed to what I need to ask the commissioners to consider is that when an assessor is elected, and Commissioner Mon was correct, anybody can get elected, and it's a county-wide election, that they are elected to the elected salary amount at that point in time. And so my adjustment would be that they are kind of, I wouldn't say, well, they're kind of whipped into, if they don't have their license at the point of election, they have 3 years to obtain their license, or they will be removed by the state of Utah. And we've had that happen once before in the county, and we want to avoid that. So my thoughts on this was, okay, you get a person elected to the position. Once they go through the 150 hours of class time, the 1,000 hours of supervised activities, and I cannot supervise them. They actually have to get a supervisor that's approved by the Division of Real Estate to be the supervisor. So that 1,000 hours. Then they have to do the 10 plus appraisals that will be looked at by the Division of Real Estate and scrutinized and approved by the Division of Real Estate. So once they go through all that process of training, supervision, hours, everything else within that 3 years, once they get the license, and this is for going forward, that instead of the state of Utah coming down and saying, hey, we're going to remove you, how about the county saying, hey, you get your license, we're going to increase, you're going to bump up your salary because you're now a licensed employee. You're more valuable to the county being licensed going forward. And so that was my idea of why I'm bringing this discussion forward to the commissioners. So, and we've got, Matt gave me all the salaries of the 29 different assessors in the state from UAC. And I'm looking I looked through these and I found the average salary that we were looking at. And then I bumped down. I said, well, let's take out Salt Lake County. Let's take out Utah County. So I bumped it down to just the 11 lowest counties that are similar to San Juan County and came up with that salary adjustment. And I'd like to work with Mac on that. And because it's elected a position, you have to have the public involvement to have a public hearing on adjustment to an elected position's salary. So the whole idea is whoever in the future would be motivated to get their license. This would be a motivating force instead of just, hey, if you don't get it, you're going to get removed from your position. So yes.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I struggle with this right now, and I'll tell you why. Because first of all, I think it's something I feel more comfortable looking at in the fall when we come to budget time, not just immediately jumping onto this. Some of my concerns are this, is that your department, we've had to outsource with 2 people to do a lot of the assessing. And I understand why, but I also feel I have spoken with, what's the Department of the State?
Tax Commission?
Yes, the Tax Commission. Excuse me. It's been a long 2 days, okay? With the Tax Commission. And there has been some red flags raised with the department, with your department, and that concern me. They were raised prior to me coming in. So I did do some follow-up with them and asked where things were at. I'm not saying that they can't be corrected. I believe some of them have been. My conversation was that they are not all corrected, and there's some definite things they are looking into, which raises some red flags for me that I would really like solved, and to see that progress is forward. I also, one comment that was made was that your time in the field. And right now we have Will McFarland in the field, we have Gordon Lowe in the field, and so I understand that they're in the field, but are you in the field? Although I understand we need someone in the office as well. We've had some transition there in the office.
Right.
So I guess that's kind of where I'm coming from. I have still some concerns with that and where the direction of that department is headed. If I felt things were very tidied up, including with the State Tax Commission, and they came in and said, yes, things look great. This looks like it's in line. Here we go. This is where we're at. And some great improvements have been made from prior to when I came in and those things were red flagged. Then I'd probably feel a little more comfortable jumping on board with this. And I agree with your certification. I compliment you on that. That needs to be done. And that's a hard process. I'm not saying I'm totally close to the idea, but at this point, I would say I need some more time with this, and I probably would have a better consideration for it when we look at budgets to approve for 2026.
So the reason I thought of bringing this up this time was we're doing the mid-year adjustments.
Sure.
It's the beginning of the election cycle. So I was just elected last year. So starting January 1st starts the next 4 years.
Correct.
And
so
that's why I brought it up at this point.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm at.
Thank you. I think my concern is money. Just today I spent time with Matt going over some of our budget, and we're going to do that in executive session. Also, we know that we are going through federal funds cuts, and we have at this point, we have used around $1 million from our saving to be able to adjust our budget. And so the thing I would feel comfortable to do something like this in the beginning of the budget cycle when we know for sure. I know that we have been working hard on correcting some of the taxes so we can see what we are bringing in, and so I don't want us to get ahead and start using our savings, because it's easy to not give raise, then have to tell people that we don't have the money. We have to let go people, because eventually, if we at the stage we are now, if we keep spending what we have, we're gonna have to do that. If we cannot maintain what we have with the money that we have right now. And I'm the kind of person that there's no fire, just lunch. Anyway, so with the money that we have, I feel comfortable to have that money for a rainy day, and we don't know what's coming. I mean, things can change. I mean, so I hear you what you're saying, and so for now, that's what I feel. I feel like, because it's kind of like a domino. We have lots of departments that need raises. We have lots of departments that have this, and they see some departments current getting more money than probably they should, and we overlooking some of the people that have been working here. And I don't like to be in that situation.
Well,
I appreciate you coming and asking.
Well,
I know it's not easy to feel like you have to come, but
more or less a policy that when somebody gets licensed,
yeah,
the county recognizes that, licensure, and an incentive is
and
payment.
I understand that. So
Yeah, that's what
did
I'm.
you have any input, comments?
So what is interesting, and the history of the assessor's office is quite involved. So we have to hire Gordon Lowe to do our commercial appraisals. So before Gordon Lowe was hired, the appraisers, those assessments hadn't been done since 2012 because nobody hired anybody to do them. And there's nobody in the county that can do them. So the county will have to hire Gordon Lowe every year regardless of what happens. Those assessments for commercial will have to be done. Now, hiring that was not my decision. That was Mac's decision and the commissioner's decision. I did not have a decision in that process, because we still have to have Gordon Lowe for next year and the next year and next year. And he offered his services plus Jeff Salmon's services to help us with our residential services, which I think we brought in another between $60 and $100 million worth of value just out of the north end of the county for this year. So they're more than paying for them. What we're paying them.
So hiring Lowe was a good decision from the
Has to.
commissioners.
You have to have it.
And the administrator.
Yeah, you have to have
Yeah,
it.
and-
I mean, that's Gordon Lowe.
Yeah.
Now, what's his name in Blanding? And Will McFarland, that was not my decision. That did not come out of, that's not out of my budget.
Yeah, that comes from under.
But that's to help the state.
Yeah.
So the state come in the county and they just happened to get on my term. They didn't come on the previous terms of the assessors. So we are cleaning up a lot of things that the state wants. So
I think it'd be a good feeling when
and Lyman can vouch for that. The assessor was doing so many things that the state didn't want him to do, and finally we're cleaning this up, and Lyman can vouch for cleaning it
you
up.
see kind of like Donald Duck, Uncle counting all the dollars in the office. Anyway,
we're not perfect, but we are moving forward.
So, we make a motion? I mean,
No, that was just a discussion.
Oh, this is just
So-
a discussion. We're still on the discussion. I thought we were.
So we want to wait till
Commissioner, Madam Chair, maybe I do have a comment.
Okay.
I think you just made that statement there that resonated in my mind, Rick, is that the state is requiring us to make some some corrections right at the moment. And I think that's where we're all coming from is right now those are corrections that the state is wanting us to have completed. That's current priority. And I think this conversation can come after we've done what the state needs. Let's take this as it needs to go. Let's focus on getting the corrections done with the state. Then we can talk about, I know your work to get those corrections completed is going to be important now more than ever. And this is an opportunity to step up and say, yeah, I made these important changes to get right with the state. And
Those corrections are going to take about another 3 years to finish.
And that's an important fact to know too.
It's time. I mean, I just can't do it right now. It takes time.
Right. And I know with your experience and your knowledge and your skill, I have faith in you and your ability. But let's get this in its proper order. Thank you for your ideas. They're valuable.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we're heading into business action item number 10. You've got consideration, and this is a discussion of fee adjustments for litter cleanup amendments with the state HB 53 that come out of the state legislative session. Jed,
Correct.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank
Good
you.
to see you here.
Good afternoon. I know it's afternoon because we heard the siren.
This afternoon.
Okay, so once a month, all the landfill managers in the state have a meeting where we come. This last meeting was last week, and they concentrated on state legislation that was passed that affects landfills. Now, there was a lot of little things that are mostly going to be paperwork items that we'll be able to take care of without any consideration from the commission. But this one item does need consideration because there was actual state law requiring that we implement a fine for any unsecured or untarped loads that come to a landfill. Now, the purpose behind the law is because they've been having problems statewide of stuff coming off loads, injuring people, different things. But also, in making the law, they also cited the fact that the Olympics are coming to Utah, and they want to make sure the whole state looks clean and neat. But the changes they made were, and I submitted the whole bill, but the ones that we need to pay particular attention to for the landfill are on page 8.
Is this the page that you're looking at?
Pardon?
Is that the page?
Yeah, I think that's.
I'll blow it up. Oh,
Make sure I'm on the right page there.
those two.
No, page 6, excuse me. So they created a litter abatement expendable special revenue fund. And the way the fund is going to be funded is they require that a landfill implement a minimum fine for unsecured loads as described in section 72-7-410 and interest earnings on the cash balances. What the minimum fine is any load that comes to a landfill that is unsecured and not covered. That's a two-part thing. It's got to be secured and covered. It can't just be one or the other. So basically all loads need to be tarped. They also need to be secured. The minimum fine is $10. $5 of that fine goes back to the state. The landfill is able to keep $5 of the fine. However, this was discussed pretty extensively in our meetings last week, and there are several landfills throughout the state who have implemented this all along. In fact, we've had a policy all along that all loads must be tarped. but we've never had an enforcement criteria. In other words, we've never had a penalty if you show up and it's not tarped. We just have as you enter the landfill, it says all loads are required to be tarped, but there's no mechanism to enforce that. And what the state's done here is given us a mechanism. As I talked with other landfills that participated in the meeting last week, the most successful landfills with enforcing this have been the ones who have implemented a different type of fee schedule. And it says in here that that landfills are also able to implement any fee they would like, but they just have to be able to meet the minimum landfill requirement. The ones that have had the most success in the state are the ones that have done what they call, they've just basically, if you come to the landfill untarped, you have to pay double the tipping fee. So in other words, what you have normally paid that day when you arrived at the landfill, they just double that, and that's what you would pay for coming untarped. Now, is that to generate a whole bunch of revenue? No, it's not. That's not the purpose of that. The purpose is to get to where we really don't ever have to charge this fee. So the ones that have had success are the ones that have done that, because it only takes one time of a commercial truck coming and he's not tarped, and his fee is normally $400 and suddenly went to $800. He doesn't come back untarped. Number one, his employer is going to get after that employee pretty seriously, but they just don't come back untarped. The same thing with the general public. If they had a normal load fee was going to be $10, then they would have paid $20, and so we would have met the minimum. And that's our minimum dumping fee at the landfill no matter what. So we would always meet the state minimum no matter what if we doubled the tipping fee. But if it was a $50 load, it would make it a $100 load. The objective of that is to discourage them from ever coming to the landfill untarped. That's the purpose of it. That's the purpose of the bill even, is to make sure that we have the loads secured and tarped from the point of origin to the landfills. There's other entities that will be involved in implementing all this bill. It's going to involve law enforcement because they've changed all the state mandated fees for if a law enforcement officer pulls somebody over on the highway and they're untarped or unsecured. The minimum fee for a personal private citizen is $200. The maximum fee is $500. But if they have more than one offense, then the minimum fee is $500 with a maximum of $1,000. And a commercial minimum is $500 with a maximum of $1,000. And or minimum second offense, a minimum fee of $1,000. So the state's getting kind of serious about implementing this. They've also put in the wording of the bill where local law enforcement departments have to actually talk to the state about how they're implementing that and what they're doing when they're pulling people over. They are allowed to give a warning, but after the warning, they're supposed to keep a record of the license plate, and only one warning is supposed to be given. So as we talked about it in the state meetings, those were the units that had the most success. They got people to quit coming to their landfills untarped, or the ones that doubled their tipping fees. Now, was that universal through all the landfills? No. There were others who just were billing the minimums. And there were others, but they weren't seeing the same success rates of having nobody come untarped or unsecured. So that would be my proposal, is that we create a policy that we would double the tipping fee. Because in my opinion, we're not trying to collect revenue here. What we're trying to do is to get them to change their habits of the way they bring trash to the landfill. So with that in mind, there are some dates that we have to be aware of. The first date is at the very end of the bill. It says this bill takes effect on May 7th, 2025. So that means the bill's already in effect. We can start charging at any point, any time we would like to. However, we don't actually have to file any reports until next March. That's when we have to file a report saying how many loads came to the landfill that were untarped, not tarped, and whether we collected fees. And we don't have to pay any of those fees.
We can make money then.
We can, but that's not our objective here.
I know, I just.
Our objective is to get them to quit coming that way because it is a problem along the highways. The reason we have to pay employees extra time to go down, pick up the highway, because that's where they're seeing the problems is next to landfills, next to places like that. So we're trying to eliminate the problem as best we can with just by changing behavior. They're also encouraging us to have educational time frame to this. The next date we need to keep in mind is we don't actually start paying any of the state's portion of the fees until July of 2026. So we have some time to start working this in. So my proposal is, one, is to get the tipping fee said that we will double it. The second proposal is that we're not going to do that to anybody on their first offense coming to the landfill. We would like to create a handbill or a flyer that we start passing out to everybody that comes to the landfill within the next month or two. We'd like to give them the flyer that tells them about the new state bill, that gives them notification of it. We'd like to get an ad in the paper that tells them the notification of the bill so that the general public's aware of this change. Before we start implementing this, but we'd like to start implementing by perhaps the end of the summer, August, somewhere in there, 1st of September, and start implementing the process. We would like to give them the handbill first that says, explains the bill, lets them know that that's their first warning. We would keep a database of the license plates that have had a warning, and after they've had one warning, then we would not give them a second warning. We would impose the fine of doubling their tipping rate.
I like that. I think that's not only a good way to not have to be policing and making people uncomfortable every time they come. They know the rules, and it's safe. When we travel to Salt Lake, there's so many trucks. They have construction material or gardening, debris is flying everywhere. We were following a truck. They had construction material. They had insulation of white foam type of thing, and the wind was blowing. Those things were all over the freeway.
It is a problem
statewide. It can be.
We actually had 2 deaths last year in the state of Utah from stuff coming off of loads.
It is, a concern of safety also. So, anybody have any comments, Commissioner?
So you said tarped and secured. What if a load comes in tarped but not secured? They'll still pay the
That is a
tipping?
possibility. They would still have to pay the double tipping fee, and we would explain to them the difference and show them why it's not secured.
And then my other thing is I think if you're shooting for August, that's probably a great date. I mean, I support that. And with a paper flyer, that's great. But when we're talking trash, I mean, I just see some.
It does create more trash. I understand that, but we have to educate the public somehow.
I don't disagree. So could we do both forms? So either, if I have my phone, I'd rather scan the code. I've got the information in front of me.
That would be good too.
We have 2 options.
Yes, I agree.
Could we have a sign?
Oh, and I failed to mention that. I would like. I want to propose as well that we create a new sign at the entrance of the landfill that talks about State House Bill 53.
Okay, thank you.
So do we have to adjust our policy on here? And do a policy
we don't have to adjust our policy because we already have it in the policy that all loads must be tarped to come to the landfill.
It's just a fee.
So it's imagine we have to implement a fee because it's being required by the state to implement that fee.
Go through our fee schedule and make the adjustment there.
Correct.
The public hearing, and so
We probably
we tee it up for August.
We probably need to also reference in the policy this new bill.
Yes,
We
I
would
agree.
need that reference. We would need that
Make
update
an
in that
amendment to
policy.
that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyway, so this is to make you aware of it. It's happening. I wanted to make sure that my proposal is to double the tipping fee. And my only reason behind that isn't because I want to collect more money. My reason behind that is I want to discourage them from coming unsecured or untarped. We had one individual suggest, well, we'll just get to sit down at the end of the road and sell tarps. Well, the law actually says from point of origin to the landfill. And it's unfortunate because it makes us become part of the enforcing agency when the reality of it is, and this is probably a real scenario, is we'll have people that will come and say, well, if that's the law, I'm just going to turn around and take the load back. And they have every right to do that. But in this bill, it also makes us report that. We have to report that they turned around and left the load, and we have to give the license plate number up. And so then in the bill, it also requires either the law enforcement or your county health agency, one of the two, to follow up on that. My personal opinion is it would be more effective with the law enforcement agency to follow up.
Yeah.
But that's going to be part of all that. So it involves more than just the landfill. It's going to involve the sheriff's department. It's going to involve cities, the county, also, city police departments, et cetera. We're just starting the education process of it today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Have any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to say I'm supportive of this effort. I think I agree with you when it comes to it's not about revenue, but rather changing behaviors and being safe.
Correct.
And I think if we can stand on those two points in the community, it would be very understandable for us, especially for down south. I know we use the landfill. Sometimes you see bags beside the road that are a result of not being covered, but this will help us with being more safe and good practice, I think. So.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. Let me see how I want to say it. Approve the fee. Well, I would like to make a motion. I just think more to approve the beginning process of this.
I think that's what we're after.
Compliance with this new bill.
To know that before we make the initial bill up of telling them what they were going to do, we need to know kind of what you're supporting. So if you're supporting double the fees, the tipping fee, we're going to include that in the information that they'll receive. And so we need to know what your support, although that's not being approved yet.
Yes, so I do. So do we want to just have you come back with the information? Are we better with that than making the motion, or do you just give you the recommendation to proceed forward?
Yeah, I need a recommendation to proceed with that, I think.
So we probably need. So what what I'm requesting is
to change the fee.
Could you bring the information to us by the next meeting in August, the first meeting in August, and then we could at least review, and then we can say, yeah, we agree with this, or this, and then we'd have the next meeting, because we're going to have to look at the policy, we're going to have to look at the information, bullet pointed, whatever you want to, educate the public with, and then I would think we could set the date for the public comment, like more the first part of September.
Okay.
So I guess that's kind of the direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not making a motion then.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for your consideration. All right. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're down to item 11, which is consideration and approval of written findings and records of fact directing the county attorney's office to respond in writing to the 7th District Court Judge Dawn M. Torgerson. We've got Jens, our deputy county attorney, presenting this one.
Hello, commissioners. You never dreamed, did you, when you took this job, that you would be experts on private airstrips? Now you're some of the few experts around. So today we have Jimmy Anderson, who's online. He represents Mr. Spielman, and we have Justin Matkin here, who represents the Sky Ranch, the property owners. And I think you've been made aware of a lot of information. I want to just read to you some proposed findings that I view as something that could be the findings you could send back to Judge Torgerson. And you're welcome to ask questions of any of the attorneys here if you have further questions. So, just some proposed findings. we find that the Sky Ranch airstrip has been in operation since the 1980s and was recently approved by San Juan County in 2018 when amended Phase 1 of the Sky Ranch Estates subdivision was approved. We find that nothing related to the airstrip has changed other than modifications that increase the usability and safety, meaning length, width, buffer zones. I misspelled buffer zones, sorry, on my paper here. We find that safety concerns were brought to the Planning and Zoning Commission in October of 2020 and to the County Commissioners in February of 2021. Most of these were verbal by lay persons that had experience with flying. They voiced their concerns, but the concerns did not persuade the county, meaning the Planning and Zoning or the County Commissioners, that the airstrip was somehow unsafe now when it wasn't unsafe back in 2018 when everything was approved. And we have received safety reports relating to the airstrip, and we have heard presentations regarding these reports. At least one report does consider the airstrip to be safe if operated with appropriate regulatory controls, and we agree with that assessment. We find that San Juan County can address safety concerns related to the new housing built along the airstrip at the time of construction, including a requirement of barriers, adequate distance of dwellings from the airstrip itself, regulation of the number of flights per day, regulation of the types of planes using the airstrip, and regulation of the pilots flying those planes, and other regulations that relate to safety. We find that the airstrip is part of the Phase 2 application and will essentially be a common right-of-way for dwellings built along the runway. Rules regarding its use, maintenance, and upkeep will be the responsibility of the landowners as set forth in the covenants, conditions, and restrictions relating to the subdivision or the improvement, the development. So this is just a proposed set of findings, and the idea is here it incorporates the history of the airstrip, and the new factor here is the homes surrounding the airstrip, not the airstrip itself. And that's a key factor. I think we've kind of touched on this, but the county all the way up through till today, its actions have never been a negative related to the airstrip itself. The airstrip is what it is, and it has been there. So it's the opinion, at least of the county attorney's office, that to find the airstrip unsafe itself it just doesn't make a lot of sense considering the history there. The safety issues are related to the new homes coming in, and it's your decision to decide, but there is evidence to say that this airstrip can be operated safely and that measures can be put in place so that as the homes come in, when they do, if they do, I mean, this is a theoretical plan still, when they do, that measures can be taken to ensure safety. A couple more things to consider. There has always been have always been airplanes flying, coming and going related to this airstrip, going clear back to the initial time of it. So that wouldn't change no matter what the county commission does now with Phase 2. That element of the area out there has always been since the 80s, maybe the 70s, but the 80s. Everyone agrees that at least going back to the 80s. Okay, so those are just some proposed findings. If the commissioners have any questions for me or for the attorneys, we'll be happy to do our best to answer them.
You have questions? Wait. He's waiting to have a question.
I mean, are you ready for what we think or to respond to you? Or
Well, the commissioners, you can make a decision today if you'd like. You could adopt these findings. You could make your own findings.
Okay.
If you, so it's you have a number of options today.
And I think the issue here is understand that this is a directive to send this into district court where the district court has to make these findings.
Right.
And so as part of that, we have to give specific reasons why these findings. And so the language here that Jens has proposed is to help you understand, it's totally your decision what to do with it. But to help you put it in so-called legal terms, I think these are the findings that you would need to find. And these are just proposed. You're welcome to find your own findings, make up whatever you want. But this is just an aid.
So I can give my opinion and then you can put the legal terms to it. How's that?
So yeah, sometimes in a meeting like this, you're ready to make a decision and you verbalize the findings. So we could assist you with that. And as Mitch said, the judge in this case has heard the arguments about all the issues, and he sent back a question for us on these couple issues. So it's fairly limited. Some of the concerns that have been raised are concerns that were raised in court. The judge has heard those, and he may comment on those in his ruling, but specifically he asked us for these.
Can we go ahead?
It's like Jamie has a question.
I just wanted to, since you were referring to the questions, just again remind us that the questions we were asked to answer.
Sure. So the remand, the specific wording is in the packet, but basically the remand was this. The judge said there were two findings that he wanted us to tell him where those findings were supported. And I'm talking about findings from the administrative law judge. One was whether the airstrip itself is within the subdivision boundaries. The wording of the ALJ's decision said that the airstrip was not within the subdivision boundaries, and I think that was just a mistake. Clearly it is within the boundaries, so that's one. That's the easy one. The second one is the ALJ's decision made reference to the county commissioners relying on and hearing certain safety information, but he didn't find necessarily in the record where that was clear to him. That's the way I would verbalize his remand. So he wants us to state, as a county commission, do you make findings that safety information was considered, and do you find it to be safe? And second, was the airstrip within the boundaries? And we've probably kind of tried to explain this question a few times and said it a little differently each time, but that's the gist of it.
So just so that we all understand the questions, it's simply, is the airport within the subdivision boundaries? And secondly, is the information that is there to demonstrate that it's safe?
Yes, more or less. I think that's correct. And when you talk about the safety, keep in mind, you go back and if you put yourselves in the shoes of the planning and zoning and then the commissioners.
More like in the mind.
In the mind,
of
not the shoes, the
those
mind.
Commissioners one time ago.
Yeah, and in the packet, there's so anyway, in 2020, the phase two comes to the planning and zoning for approval. And if you look at Scott Burton's comments that he made to the county commissioners regarding that, he said that there was a lot of back and forth and discussion in those meetings. They came to the county commission meeting and they recommended approval of phase two. And in his language, he said that, this airstrip has been here and we're not going back to review the airstrip, more or less. And this is about meeting the residential housing requirement, residential lot requirements. That doesn't mean they didn't consider safety information, because clearly they did. If you look at the minutes of the county commission meeting, there was a list of people that made comments regarding safety. So again, planning and zoning and the county commissioners before you, they said, look, this airstrip's been in use, it's been deemed safe, so to speak, all these years. Why would it not be safe now? The housing coming in is the new condition. And so can we make can we take steps? Are there measures to be taken that allow for that part to be safe? The experts that you've got two safety reports in the big packet, one for and against, so to speak. The expert that was here at the last county commission meeting, he explained why he felt that way, and part of that was related to proper oversight and regulation of how the airstrip was managed. Limited number of flights, pilots, planes, all those kind of things. So I don't know if that helps Jamie or not, but
it does help in the sense that we do have two questions to respond to, and now we're aware clearly what those questions are that we need to respond to.
So one thing I
Would
can
you
do,
like more time? Would you want to have more time to think about it?
if you have questions with the attorneys here online and here, now is a good time to. If you don't, that's fine as well. I'm just saying.
I have a question because we are. I feel like King Solomon of old, trying to decide
Yeah.
between two dreams, two mothers, two people that have desires for the land, and this is many years later. That those commissioners that sat in our place have made some decisions that the place was safe. Now the population is going to be growing. So basically, my question would be, so it can be a win-win situation instead of being something that is dividing and what's something that can be not guaranteed, but kind of say, okay, yeah, we're going to have, it's going to be more homes. It's going to be, accidents have never happened. It's going to be more homes. There's going to be more. What can be offered as an extra, more safety that probably wasn't necessary then, and maybe right now before the houses are going around. And I have been there twice. I have watched from both ends, and it's a nice area. It looks like a nice principle to be able to fly in, and I have seen people have just a small space where they can land. So to me, is how can we resolve in a way that we're trying to analyze what the people long time ago were deciding. That's one of the hardest things of being commissioner, because the decision we make now affects the future. And so they probably thought that nobody ever going to move in that area. They thought, well, that's just going to be an old camp. And so now we are here, and we have lots of people that want to build there. So that is my question is, how can, your client, what some of the things that he can guarantee, pacify, I don't know, it's not pacify or guarantee, it's just how we can make it a win-win where people feel like we are cooperating. We're not trying to take advantage of anybody. We're just trying to.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that. And this is certainly not a situation where we're trying to take advantage of anything or anyone. The airstrip obviously has been there for a long time. The phase one already has 6 approved lots, and so I think there's kind of
we understand that,
right.
and we
And so,
understand
right.
the
And so,
press, and I'm just talking about as the houses start coming.
Yeah, so we've I don't know if you saw it, but I sent a letter to the county attorney and Mr. McDonald a few days ago that offered some of those types of things.
Okay.
What we suggested was that we would.
But if you can repeat it here for the public.
Yes, thank you. That we would agree to limit the number of airplanes that would ever be able to fly in or out of that airstrip to 35. So the idea, I mean, some of the things you heard before was there's going to be 70 homes, there's going to be 70 airplanes, it's going to be a huge airport. It's just this is not the case. There's already 6 approved, right? Because that's phase 1. And so we would limit new potential aircraft to additional 29, so totally of 35. So only 35 aircraft could ever operate out of there at any one time. In addition, there needs to be safety inspections by the airport manager for the aircraft that fly in and out to make sure they're safe and airworthy, have sufficient power to operate in and out, that the pilots are certified and competent, and that they actually own property at the location, so you don't have transient pilots coming in and out who aren't familiar with the area. But perhaps one of the biggest things I think we can offer is voluntarily limiting the number of flights that would come in and out at any one time. So what we're suggesting is that we would voluntarily limit the number of flights to 3 per day over average of 6 months. So some days there would be 0 flights. Some days there may be a few more than 3, but there would be no more than 3 flights per day on average over 6. So we would keep track of the number of landings and takeoffs and then average those over a period. So if it ever got to the point where there were more flights coming in and out, we would voluntarily restrict that. Now, we don't think that's likely, but in order to address some of the concerns of there being just a huge amount of traffic, flights in and out, that we would limit the number of flights per day to 3. That we would install barriers at the end of the runway, so that airstrip, so that if there ever was an excursion, that the airplane would stop before it got to the road, before it got to Mr. Spielman's property, that it would not go any further. That we will install fencing to keep children or deer or coyotes off the runway, so you don't have that problem. And that we've agreed to voluntarily enforce all these rules and regulations. No nighttime flying, no touch and go landings, no aerobatic maneuvers, and all those types of things that we have already set forth in the rules and regulations, that we would enforce those. And if there was ever a violation of a pilot, that they would lose their flight privileges for a period of at least 3 months. And the county, and that we would install all of these rules and regulations in the CCNRs, and that before the final plat was signed off by the county and recorded, the staff would verify that all those rules and regulations are in the CCNRs. So we attempted to voluntarily restrict the use, the number of airplanes, in order to mitigate the impacts on the neighbors. So I don't know if that's exactly what you were thinking of.
Yeah, that helps. Another thing is, okay, you think about 30 whatever planes in that what period, how many years it probably take a while to build up to that number. It won't be.
Yes, ma'am. Normally these types of developments progress very slowly, so you'll see a few a year. And so even there's one down in Hurricane where there's it's been open for a number of years, but there's only 10 or 12 homes there. It's kind of a long time so it'll probably be a long time before there ever be that number of flights or aircraft. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Commissioner?
Anything else that I can address?
Do you have
I
any?
have comments, but not just general
Okay.
comments.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Commissioner, do you have a comment?
Yeah.
Oh.
So we do have Mr. Anderson who's online. Do any of you have questions for him?
Okay.
Maybe. Is it okay if I ask him if he would like to?
Yeah.
Jimmy, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, if it's okay, Mr. Spielman actually prepared a little bit that he wanted to respond with.
Oh, okay. So, Carl?
Hi. So first, I just wanted to ask if you had any questions on the photo history, because that was where we left off. Okay. All right. So this is these are my thoughts on what Mr. Matkin actually just told you about his voluntary concessions. To date, we've seen none of these self-imposed restrictions that have actually been placed into service. There's no X's on the runway, which is required to alert transient pilots that the runway is closed to the public. There's no threshold markers. I know they promised them, but he says that they've already have them in place, but that's not really true. There's been nothing done. At the end of this letter, Mr. Mackin makes it sound like these changes will not be placed into service until after the county approves the final plat. Isn't it supposed to work in reverse? And why haven't these restrictions been implemented for the phase 1 runway for over all these years? None of this has been implemented yet. Are these people working with the county in good faith? Perhaps this historic airstrip idea should be tested to see if that historic non-conforming use has been preserved or lost in accordance with your own ordinances. I couldn't put it more plainly. 35 airplanes far exceeds any conceivable historical use. The safety inspector, Larry Williams, or the safety retired FAA guy, said that my concerns might be overstated or overblown. But these concerns regarding impacts are mainstream concerns observed by all responsible airport designers if the safety of the public is of any priority to them. The state of Utah's House Rules 44 bill recognizes the hazards surrounding both public and private airports, such as they require notification of neighboring properties within 1/2 mile of the airport. This notification will be recorded on the deeds of surrounding properties so that someone buying a property in this zone is aware of the potential hazards before they purchase the property. It doesn't sound like the state thinks that the surrounding areas of an airport don't contain a hazard. Consider the assessed value implications on surrounding properties in the future. It says that Mr. Mackin says that he's willing to limit flight operations and use the airstrip to minimize impacts on the neighbors. But the proper language from the county's own ordinances requires eliminating hazards, not minimizing impacts. Either the runway is designed properly or it isn't. So it says that all these airplanes have to work in concert with their CCNRs. But no pilots would ever agree to use the stated pattern and takeoff and landing restrictions unless they were simply paying lip service to gain access to the runway. They might be advised to consider them, but no silly document like this could require a pilot in command, PIC, an official FAA term, to follow them if he deems them to be dangerous. Pilots using Sky Ranch will fly around the pattern using current wind, weather, and conflicting traffic considerations and ignore these contrived restrictions as they should. In other words, they propose taking off to the south and landing from the south. Well, you'd only do that if the wind is favorable or if the other traffic in the pattern is using that runway. If you're a pilot in command, you're the final arbiter, or the buck stops with you. None of these CCNRs can compel any pilot in command to do something that he deems to be dangerous. It says each airplane must be initially inspected by the airstrip manager. Who will this manager be on the site, and what qualifications do they have to deem others can fly? You should ask yourself, who's this guy going to be? How will this manager ascertain this power requirement, this underpowered myth? By using FAA-approved performance tables, perhaps? Is he going to look at the actual performance tables to define what's underpowered? Maybe he will. Why not use other FAA design parameters and create the safest runway environment possible? Not just the runway, but the environment. Why let a bunch of amateurs decide what to pick and choose to govern something as complicated as an airport? An FAA licensed expert with an inspection authorization license must take legal responsibility by law when he deems an aircraft to be airworthy. That's when we have an annual inspection or we need our airplane repaired. But he's not taking liability for verifying an airplane is suitable for any specific task, like operating from a marginal runway. Who in their right mind would accept such liability should an accident occur? This is a layperson, right? The manager of the airport. It's an unworkable plan. The requirement will, airworthy airplanes and experienced pilots, even commercial planes that have gone through regular certifications, crash within RPZs and other safety zones that the FAA provides for emergencies around airports. This airport traffic area accounts for 71% of all general aviation accidents in the United States. That means that airport traffic area within a mile or so around the airport, with its landings and its takeoffs and its patterns and its power changes, that's where most of the accidents happen. People make mistakes, even airworthy airplanes and proficient pilots. That's who makes these mistakes. That's when you read about a crash, those guys were all legitimate according to Mr. Matkin's rules. So you can't really say that his rules are going to preclude an accident. The total number of flights, 3 flights per day. How will this be measured? While 3 flights per day sounds like a small number, it equates to 1,095 takeoffs and 1,095 landings, or 2,190 opportunities for incidents per year. Placing barriers. How high are these proposed barriers? A barrier of sorts, currently undefined, might stop a skidding aircraft from penetrating the property boundary. But what concern is given to the pilot and passengers when a simple overshot aborted takeoff that might carry them into an open field unharmed turns into a fireball against a concrete bulkhead? Additionally, a pilot failing to lift off before the end of the runway would yank the aircraft into the air to avoid the barrier, just as you and I would turn the wheel of our car to avoid a bridge abutment. The aircraft would float over any barrier under 12 feet and would fall from the air onto the adjoining property, perhaps into someone's backyard. This could happen regardless of the barrier's construction material. And consider what happens to an airplane when it undershoots his landing and contacts the barrier at high speed. So it might be good to stop airplanes from coming on Carl Spielman's, the complainer, his property. But what about airplanes coming in for a landing? What if they undershoot, which is very common? RPZs provide safety for airplanes both landing and taking off. This is why a properly designed airport has such large expanses of open land around it, and most importantly, immediately along the arrival and departure corridor of each end. Think the Monticello Airport. Wide open spaces. Gives a pilot options if he has an emergency. The RPZ is to protect the pilot dealing with an emergency in his aircraft and those innocents on the ground in its path. The final plat must be signed off by the county staff before recording. This is starting to sound like a plea from Sky Ranch for the county to exercise its conditional use oversight. That sounds like a good trend. The county should take this overture to retain their own airport design expert to make sure that the airport is safe using best practices and not a piecemeal band-aid by amateurs. Frankly, with all due respect, we're all amateurs here when it comes to designing an airport. So repeatedly, we've stated that you guys have airports in this county and you've dealt with airport engineering firms. And yet, in 8 years, no one has ever called those guys. And I've been talking about this for 8 years now. Why is that? So here we are with a judge sending down a thing for you guys, putting it in your lap to decide what the safety of the airport's going to be like. And you have experts available. I would implore you to contact them. The actual hazards need to be identified by a professional, unbiased engineering firm that specializes in airport design. The opinions of an expert witness paid by the developer does not create a firm enough foundation to aid the county in creating proper ordinances. And we're talking about airport ordinances going forward. You know, do you want to be in this kind of nebulous situation in the future, you need to codify some of these requirements for airports, which you don't currently have any. And I suggest that you contact an expert, and that helps the planning and zoning guys codify some of these regulations so it's fair to everyone. And that's the final thing I'd like to stipulate, is that I really think you should send it to the P&Z for them to kick around. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions for you. You had stated last time that you are a certified pilot, correct? So do you still own a plane?
Yes.
Do you still fly that plane?
Yes, I do.
So can I ask where you fly in and out of with that plane and where it's housed?
The plane is currently based in Cortez, Colorado, where I live, in a hangar. But I also have a hangar and an airstrip adjoining Sky Ranch. And so we still own it. The hangar is still empty of an airplane, but I fly down there sometimes so when I have to mow the grass and things like that.
So do you land on your airstrip on your property?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So when was the last time you flew in on that airstrip?
About 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. So you have and your airstrip is not paved, correct?
It is not paved.
It's dirt.
Yes.
So it is an active airstrip.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Could
So that's all the questions I have for you, but then I will have a statement or two. So you don't have to just stand up there while I speak. But I guess this is kind of where I land on this. And this has not been an easy decision by any means. Trust me, I have grandkids at my house right now, and one of them said to me, "What are all these papers?" And these are all out. I've gone through them. I've gone through a lot of them. I've tried to do my due diligence with this completely. But I find it really interesting. So I've been in this position since January. And before I came in, the planning and zoning we're obviously trying to change our planning and zoning for this county. And one of the main things that I keep hearing from people is, it's our property. It's our property rights. It's what we want to do. We want to do our own thing. And I'm thinking, yeah, we like our property rights. I agree with that. But I find it kind of interesting that we want our property rights and we want everyone to have their property rights until we don't like what someone's doing on their property rights. And then, sadly, we're now in litigation. You're both in litigation. And ultimately, a judge will decide this. But some things I have observed is this. I've observed that we talk about safety and we talk about this airport. Has there been and I don't want to call it an airport because technically it's not. It's an airstrip. It's a paved airstrip. So has an accident occurred on that airstrip that we're aware of? A wreck, an accident.
Yes.
So I'm getting a yes and I'm getting a no. So
yes,
that would be something to be determined.
Well,
But
I've lived there for 25 years. I'm aware of at least 10. I can enumerate them, and if you want, but I've never gone into that before.
Okay.
But so between the three airstrips, that is, between the old Grand County airstrip.
No, I'm speaking only of.
Well, this is important for you guys to know because for many years they say that this was FAA approved in 1985. They used the latitude and longitude of the old Grand County airstrip instead of the latitude and longitude of Sky Ranch airstrip. So at least 3 accidents that I know of, one's in the Moab paper, were accidents arising from a person who had an emergency and hit there's a GPS function nearest airport and mistook the old Grand County airport for Sky Ranch and went through a fence because the old Grand County airstrip was abandoned and it was cross-fenced. So that's just one. I can go on and on.
So anyhow, to continue. So I guess this is where I lean a lot is that, okay, we have highways, we pave them. Now, we want to say they're safe, but do accidents happen on those? Absolutely. We all assume a risk when we put our vehicle on that. When we put our vehicle on that road, we all assume a risk. When we fly into those airstrips, we all assume a risk. Paved, not paved, wherever they may be existing. So I have to say, what is this a safe place to land? So with doing my homework, I actually asked someone, got permission, and flew into that airstrip. It was much different experience than what I had thought and what I had heard. What I thought was I was coming into a very, very narrow place. I was coming into something that was very different than what I experienced. The pilot actually came in at a higher speed than when, and we landed maybe halfway into that airport. I got out, I walked around, I looked, I took pictures. There's barriers. The person that I see who's at the greatest risk is someone who decides to build and invest a Sky Ranch, because it's their home that's going to be hit with an airplane if such accident does occur. And that's a risk that they assume. I wish there was a fair solution. I wish there was something that was fair, but as far as feeling safe coming in and down there, I did not feel unsafe. I felt there was a large ditch. There's homes that are further away. I have a tendency to believe, I do not know this for a fact, that some of these people that spoke out about this, I would probably speak out it too if that phase 2 had been approved and my view is now going to be blocked, because it's a beautiful view. I'm not saying that's why they're opposed to it, but so if based on what the judge is asking and the determination, I would have to lean more toward safety. I feel like the plan, they went with those recommendations. I was not on the planning and zoning, nor was I on the commission at that time. But what I read and seen the documents, I definitely have to lean more toward that it is safe, that it should be, they've approved it and it should go forth. So that's where I'm going to land on it.
Well, every successful landing is thrilling and safe, because by definition it was successful. What I've never said that the airstrip wasn't usable. I think we're conflating usability and safety. The issue with the runway, as far as it impinges my property and Sitla's property off the two ends, is what happens in an emergency. And that is why the FAA has put wide open spaces off the end of all of their runways.
So what's different from your airport that you fly, your airstrip that you fly in and out of, versus the Sky Ranch?
There aren't any houses off the end of my airstrip. And when there are...
However, you could short run yours as well and come... I guess what I'm saying is we're trying to have an argument. And I'm not going to argue over this because I've made my opinion.
There's a table. And the table shows the FAA regulation.
In all due respect, I get what you're saying, but my opinion remains the same, so I'm going to keep it at that without getting into that.
I'm just saying it's quantified.
You're right, and granted, we differ. We definitely differ on the opinion, but based on what I've read, seen, experienced, and saw, I feel that the Planning and Zoning Commission, yes, they made the approval to approve phase 2. They made the approval to approve phase 1, and I would support their decision. I would definitely support that decision. So, Commissioner Harvey.
Madam Chair, I would like to ask for an executive meeting that we can go into with just us and our attorney. It's important that we answer the 2 questions we've been tasked with. And I think the more that we deliberate or allow presenters to present their ideas and thoughts, we're going to go off track of our purpose. So I'd like to take the time to sit with our attorney with the clear task on hand and we can all make the decision as it should.
Let me just comment on that. So executive session is allowed to discuss pending litigation. There is litigation on this. Generally, that's for the purpose of discussing, matters that wouldn't be appropriate to discuss in the public. And so the debate about safety and the questions and so forth really should be here. If you want to go into executive session to discuss the litigation itself, then that's fine. But the debate and the formulation of your answer and stuff is a public matter. So we, anyway, so it's okay to go in and come back out if you have a question about the pending litigation, and then we can finish the discussion. That would be okay if that's what you're wondering.
Yes,
That's what
I'd
you're
like to discuss further the pending litigation.
Okay, do we have a motion to go into
Yeah, you can do.
close meeting?
Need a motion and a unanimous vote.
Do you want to make a motion?
I did. I made a motion.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 And is this just so that the group is aware, is this a 10-minute thing, 20-minute
Yes,
thing?
this shouldn't take long. We can close the doors.
Should
Reset.
go into Mac's office?
Yeah,
We can just-
we can go into
That would
Mac's
be
office.
easier. I was just trying to figure